James Franklin, a fair assessment. Welcome in, everyone, to the Voice of College Football for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Please like the video and subscribe. James Franklin and Penn State lost to Ohio State again this past weekend, 20-13 at home to lose its first game of the season. James Franklin has won one time against Ohio State in 11 seasons. What is the truth about James Franklin? What are the pluses, the minuses? Where does it stand right now? What's a fair analysis of his tenure? And then more importantly, not the history, but what's going forward for Penn State in regards to their aspirations to play deep into the playoffs, be an elite program, and win a national championship. We are going to start with the here and now. Again, another loss to Ohio State, another series of situations in which Ohio State won the game, took the game away from Penn State, or you could say that Penn State handed the game to Ohio State, depending on your perspective. Penn State has struggled on offense the last two seasons against the Buckeyes, scoring virtually no touchdowns in two football games. The one touchdown, a somewhat garbage touchdown in the final 45 seconds in Columbus in 2023. They brought in a new offensive coordinator from Kansas, of course, Coach Kotelnicki, and he has revised the offense. He had enormous success at Kansas. And what happened, though, against Ohio State? It looked drab and looked familiar. Now, Penn State has increased its rate of explosive plays due to the development of Drew Aller, the use of Tyler Warren, of course, an improved running game that features Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, who were remarkable in their freshman seasons in 2022, fell off last season, and are producing or were producing bigger numbers until they met the Ohio State Buckeyes. But Kotelnicki inside the red zone and specifically inside the 5-yard line, not able to get it done and call up the right plays. Katron Allen up the middle 3 consecutive times seems unimaginative, but if you block better, it could be more effective. The most effective way to the goal line in that situation, a straight line up the middle. So when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it looks unimaginative. Okay, back to James Franklin, because that's his responsibility, the offense. And of course, the offense not getting it done despite the improved numbers against weak competition against the likes of the Big Ten, Wisconsin, Illinois, pedestrian efforts, and again, against Ohio State, not good enough, as he stated. Let's get to the James Franklin news conference after the game. He went up front to state the changing landscape in college football and the current reality, meaning he wanted to take emphasis off of the Ohio State game because it's no longer a must-win to win a national championship. You can be an excellent football team. You can continue to lose to the same rivals each season as Penn State has, but still 10-2 in the Big Ten most seasons. We've run the models through the 10-year college football playoff, and the committee's rankings would send a 10-2 team every time to the college football playoffs, would deny 9-3 teams. So he wanted to present a situation of hope and optimism because it's a changing landscape in college football. We talked about it the entire offseason that Penn State most likely was the same team and the same program that they've largely been since 2016, when they have now gotten to a point where in 6 of the last 9 years, they will perform to at least the 10-2 regular season record. However, the landscape has changed. So Penn State would have made the playoffs more than Michigan during the 10-year college football playoff run if there was a 12-team playoff format. And now they will have that opportunity, of course, without breaking through the elite status of the Big Ten. And so he underlined that. Still, there is work to be done. So many Penn State fans will probably be giddy over a college football playoff appearance this year, and they should be. However, it's most likely going to come because of a changing format, not because Penn State is elevated. They have not changed. The college football playoff format has changed, and then the appearance factor is going to wear off within a couple years, and Penn State fans will demand victories in the CFP, and many of them, recognizing what I just stated, will want victories in the CFP this season. Again, Penn State's had an excellent program under James Franklin. He stated after the game that the expectations are high. I understand that. No one is looking in the mirror harder than me. Remember what Jim Harbaugh stated after losing to Ohio State in 2019, after the horrendous 2020 season in which they did not play Ohio State, but he was 0-5 against the Buckeyes, had not won a Big Ten championship going into the 2021 season. He basically said, I understand we've got to do everything possible. It's not good enough. We are going to break through our rival and we are going to win the Big Ten championship, or we're going to die trying. Well, Jim Harbaugh, while many didn't see it happening there because Ohio State had beaten them by a drum and there was no connection between the two programs, there was a decided gap like there is between Ohio State and Penn State right now. Jim Harbaugh got it done. We won't go into the allegations from the NCAA and the factors that could have contributed to that, but Jim Harbaugh dominated Ohio State 3 consecutive years, won the Big Ten championship 3 consecutive times, and of course a national championship. History lesson here, Tom Osborne, look him up, with Nebraska back in the 1970s through the 1990s. Ran an excellent program with the Huskers, but repeatedly lost to Oklahoma in their showdown rivalry game, which denied them shots at a national championship over and over and over and over. He finally broke through after years and years of struggles. And then, of course, won 3 national championships in the 1990s near the end of his tenure. Not saying James Franklin is going to repeat a rare history lesson right there, but it is possible, especially considering the expanded field. Now, James Franklin said that 99% of the programs in college football would love to be where Penn State is and to have accomplished what Penn State has accomplished. 99%? Well, we've got 135 FBS programs, and therefore it would be about 1.3 of them would be on Penn State's level. So I'm going to differ with him slightly in regards to 99%. How about 90% of the programs out there would love to go 10-2 continuously and play in major bowl games, in which James Franklin has been somewhat successful there in winning Fiesta Bowls, Cotton Bowls, and Rose Bowls once they get to postseason play. James Franklin basically said all the right things. That is not going to erase a loss against Ohio State or what appears to be another failed season if you're looking for a deep playoff run or a national championship, but that remains to be seen. But this team does not look prepared to take on the elite of college football. James Franklin also addressed the Penn State fans. He did it up close and personal as he was walking off the field, of course. He also did it at the news conference. He says he understands their frustrations. He appreciates the passion of Penn State fan base, that they show up in droves. Of course, they're one of the largest in the country. The stadium holds the most people next to Michigan. And of course, they show up and they show out in these games. But with passion comes the positive and the negative. Now, we don't know how many Penn State fans support James Franklin versus the ones that disapprove of his performance. We have no idea, because many times the minority is the loudest, the most vocal, the most crass, and also shows up the most on social media. So you would have to answer that question as a Penn State fan base. Who supports James Franklin and to what degree? Now, in regards to James Franklin confronting a fan as he was walking off the field, I don't generally believe that it's the wisest move for head coaches to approach and interact with fans in that situation after losing a very heated and very intense, important football game. However, that's what James Franklin chose to do. I watched this about 10 times from several different angles. At no time, despite it being difficult to hear exactly what was stated back and forth, did I see or hear anything that James Franklin did that was inappropriate. So no issue from there from my perspective. However, again, it may not necessarily be the wisest thing for James Franklin to interact with fans in that situation after those circumstances. James Franklin says he owns it all. Well, what does he own? Currently, he owns one of the 10 best football programs in America. He has been handed a situation from Bill O'Brien that, of course, was taken through scandal. O'Brien did a remarkable job in 2 seasons, maintaining, stabilizing the program, and lifting it to a number of wins that many did not think possible, 8-4, 7-5. It took James Franklin some time to elevate the program even further. Of course, he did that in 2016 with the Big Ten championship, in which he did defeat Ohio State, did win the conference championship game, and went to the Rose Bowl. After that, it's been a series of blown leads and somewhat decided losses against Ohio State that has cost this team going to the Big Ten championship game and fulfilling its aspirations of getting to the college football playoff. Also losses, of course, to Michigan recently, 3 consecutive times, that also stopped Penn State from reaching the ultimate in the Big Ten and getting to the college football playoff. It's a 10-2 at minimum team. 6 of the last 9 seasons take out a 9-4 finish in 2018, 4-5 in the COVID year of 2020, and a 7-6 Outback Bowl season of 2021. Other than that, getting to New Year's 6 bowl games, winning 10 games, and winning some of those New Year's 6 games to get to 11 wins in the postseason. Different landscape, as James Franklin states. So this is the positive. The season is not lost. Of course, Penn State is going to be a heavy favorite in the rest of its games. Penn State will play in the playoffs most likely because of the lack of quality wins. If they lose another game, they may be the rare exception to the 10-2 rule and miss the playoffs depending on what happens across the nation. Penn State's a solid, excellent program in many regards. They are not elite yet. And by all indications of the offense that we've seen, not just against Ohio State, but in recent weeks, they will not have what it takes to beat the best teams in the country and go deep into the playoffs, as Penn State fans would aspire to, and James Franklin also. So it comes down to this: unless Penn State breaks through and Andy Kotelnicki's offense becomes even more high-powered, as it has statistically, but certainly not against good defenses, Penn State will fall short of its expectations this year. So what do you do with James Franklin? On one hand, again, they're one of the 10 best programs in college football. On the other hand, he is being paid to win championships. I would not have any issue with James Franklin continuing to win 9 and 10 games for the entirety of his career for another 10 or 15 years at Penn State. But I'm not a Penn State fan. At some point, championships need to be won. They can be contended for, and it's going to look better, going to look different in regards to their ability to do so because of the 12-team playoff. But if they fail to do so over and over and over, it's just going to be a different type of frustration for Penn State fans. Look at Les Miles at LSU. Look at, most notably, Mark Richt at Georgia. 15 years at Georgia. Finished in the top 10 8 times. Under different circumstances, could have played in numerous college football playoffs, even a 4-team playoff for him, as his teams elevated even beyond what Penn State has done on a number of occasions. But Mark Richt had a bad bounce here and there, and again, a different format that required elite play to get to the college football playoffs. Therefore, Georgia made the decision to part with Mark Richt. They made a calculated risk. They hired the right guy and got Kirby Smart, and the rest is history. Mark Richt did a fine job. Should he have been fired? Well, I was asked that at the time, and I said, by all standards in any industry, Mark Richt is excellent at what he does. He should not be fired. However, this is different. It's college football. And to be elite, you've got to be in the top 3 or 4. Mark Richt is being paid in the top 3 or 4, and for several seasons now, he has not reached that standard. However, it's right and just, based on the employer's evaluation, to cut ties and say, good is not good enough. This could be the same situation with James Franklin, depending on Penn State's administration and their perspective on the situation, and the money, the buyout, how excessive that is. It's pretty high because James Franklin just signed a contract extension just a couple seasons ago. Okay, Ohio State might be the best team in the country. Penn State may be still a top 5 team in the country that could elevate in the playoff and change this entire perspective, this entire narrative. Again, think Tom Osborne. Down below, let me know. If James Franklin and Penn State go to the playoffs and lose their first or second game, should he be fired? Would you fire James Franklin? Of course, if he breaks through this season, then all is well. Leave your comments and questions below, right here at the Voice of College Football.